So I asked, an administrator, a school administrator that I knew, I used to feed into her school, my kids. And I said, would you read this book and give me some feedback? She said, let me know when this book comes out because I am going to buy it for every last one of my staff members. And she did. And she said, she wrote me a very nice message. She said, that book, the PD that we had last year was the best professional development that we had all year long. She was like, it is evident that you have the insider perspective on what people need and how to take care of them. And I got an email from her early one, that the email that she wrote that in, she was like a week or so after she read it. She said, I am sitting at my desk right now doing a strategy out of your book. And so she was like, I am going to give this to every single person in my building.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show,
LaMarr Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to my show. I'm your host, Dr. LaMarr Darnell Shields, the creator of Sound Bombing. And my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. Before I move any further, I just want to take a moment and just say thank you to all the amazing women as we celebrate Women History Month. You know, there's some amazing women in my lives, and I want to take a moment and acknowledge my two princesses in my life, Hadaya Ayodele Shields, my oldest daughter, and Samira Adama Nafia Shields, who I adore. Those two ladies mean so much to me, and thank their mother who birthed those two children who mean so much to all of us. And so I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge all the dope women on the planet who are rock stars in their own right. And you're going to love today's show because all the month of March, we're dedicating it to those amazing women. And if you don't know, and you should know, lately, well, over the last 5 years, I've been spending a lot of time closely working with leaders on incorporating self-care in their work lives as a key component of their overall performance, so that an expansion of their role or responsibility doesn't come at an expense of their health and well-being. One CEO worked with me summed it up best when she said, self-care is no longer a luxury, but it's a part of the job. So what exactly is self-care and how do we do it? I am so glad that you asked, because my next guest writes, lectures, and provides trainings on creating a culture of self-care in the workplace. She is a passionate, motivating, transformative leader, connecting on a personal level, highlighting the importance of self-care and supporting many on their journey to becoming healthier and happier in every aspect of their lives. She is the CEO of Coastal Crossroads, a counseling solution, and Dr. Gwen's Counseling Cafe. She is a licensed professional counselor, former special education teacher, behavior and emotional impairment school counselor, college professor, and has dedicated her career to working with some of the most vulnerable, challenging, and high needs populations. She holds a Doctor of Education in Administration and Education Specialist in Counseling Education, Mental Health, a Master's Education School Counseling, and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a certification in Behaviors Disorders. I just got to take a moment to just take my breath. That's a whole lot I just said. But she is a self-care leader who plays a critical role in helping people get their mind right and supporting and empowering professionals. Her new book, A to Z, Self-Care Guide for Educators, Make Yourself a Priority, Your Needs Matter Too, and Live Your Best Life, 5-minute self-care journal for teens, is helping people reevaluate their self-care practices. So you're at the right place at the right time. If you need some strategies, you need to come real close and pay attention to my friend, Dr. Gwendolyn Martin, who also goes by Dr. Gwen. Welcome to Sound Bombing, sister. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, I just saw you in Savannah, Georgia, right? A couple of weeks ago, doing what we do best. Let our listeners know where you're calling in from because they want to know what you're doing too and how you feel.
I am calling in from sunny Savannah. It is St. Patrick's Day here. We have one of the biggest parade and celebration, hence the green. I had to wear green to represent the city and all for today, but it's sunny in Savannah and I am, honored to start the day with you guys.
Hey, I'm happy that you're here. I see you rocking your green. For those that don't know, Dr. Gwen and I go way, way, way back. We were just in Savannah speaking at an amazing conference sponsored by Georgia Southern. Her table is set up next to my table. I've been knowing her for years. This girl, I got so many degrees now. When I met her, she was rocking and rolling as a counselor, social worker, doing all the work that many of us don't get pats on our back. My mom was a social worker. And so I always honor and respect those, but she's moved up the ladder. Now she's sitting on the stage with me. Not saying I'm anybody special, but before she was just a person just coming, paying her fee. Now she's next to me. Then she's on stages with me. Now she's writing books. But you told me this years ago when we met. You told me that you said, look out, I'm going to be following in your footsteps. But sister, you're not following now. You alongside, and sometimes you move a little faster than I do. So welcome. Talk about your journey of that transformation from being a school counselor to a therapist, to a social worker, to then now being a boss in what you're doing. Talk about that process because a lot of people want to step out and do what we do as we talked about in Savannah, but many of them are afraid to do that. Tell us about your process and your journey.
So my journey, like you said, Dr. LaMarr, I started out as a school counselor. As a special education teacher. And just really, it was very eye-opening working with students. I worked in a small rural community and just had a great experience. But I wanted to work with more than just the students in my class because I had a really small class. I worked with kids that had behavior disorders and emotional impairments. And what I found was, and I was one of the few minorities in the community that worked. So I found that the students and families would reach out to me about, just support. So I wanted to be available not just to the people in my class, but to the entire school and to the community. So I transitioned into becoming a school counselor so I could help more people. And in that process, I thought, at some point I may want to do other things than just in the school. So I went back and got a degree in community counseling or community mental health and worked with a nonprofit organization. All that while still at the school. And then I transitioned into educational leadership just because I felt like I was a leader in the school, but having those additional skill sets and training would make me even better. So the transition from educator to entrepreneur, I think it's just that I keep wanting to be accessible to more people. I want to help more people. So in the school, again, I have my school in the community, but some of that too is having the autonomy to do what needs to be done and not always having to, in some instances, have your hands tied. And what I found, because the last few years I've been working primarily just with kids with emotional and behavior disorders, but in school, the focus is still academic. And I'm all about some academics. I have a love of learning, which hence the degrees. But I also feel like the mental health component of working with students is where my passion is. I want them to be healthy and whole first. The academics, I feel, will come. and do come, but oftentimes the mental health gets in the way of that. And when I'm in school, I find that I have to focus, more on the academics a lot of times, but it's the pull of the mental health for me.
Why did you decide to focus on writing, lecturing, speaking, providing seminars for social workers, educators, people in the education field? Why did you decide to focus on that group of people?
Because as helpers, I think, like I said, oftentimes they don't have limits. They just give. And they're the people that need it the most. I mean, it's hard to give from an empty cup, but we somehow find a way to continue to pour into others, like you just talked about. And we oftentimes don't give ourselves that same love, care, and attention that we freely give others all day, every day. And, we don't take the time to do that for ourselves. And I think the more that you take care of yourself, the more that you will have to give others.
So I know you're in a lot of buildings, you're in a lot of schools, you're in a lot of universities, and you're observing professional counselors, special education teachers, principals, support staff, paraprofessionals. What are some of your concerns that you're noticing that maybe the world outside aren't able to see when it comes to these folks just being burned out?
I was just going to say that compassion fatigue is real, and that burnout is real. Some people are running on empty. They just really are. They are running on empty. And I think the expectation for them to do that, in many cases, depending on the organization, that's the expectation, is that you give it. I remember, I'm going to give an example. I remember as a counselor, we had a project that we were working on, and we were doing all these trainings, and we were trying to come up with a platform to track our time, to see how much time, because we were trying to say we're doing too much. We're everybody in the school. We're the test coordinator, 504 coordinator, SST coordinator, the SPED, we're on the SPED team, we're this, and this. And we really can't be in front of kids, which is what we signed up to do. We want to help kids. And so they were like, track your time so we can see exactly how much time you're spending doing this, and this. So we met, and one of the counselors talked about how he was spending all this time on the weekends doing this, and this in an afternoon. And he was seen as the exemplar. And I thought, so I asked the question, really? This is the exemplar? This is what, this person is talking about how it takes him the weekends and the afternoons and the evenings to get things done. And this is the exemplar, like, this is what you guys are expecting. It was so eye-opening for me, like that whole self-care, but in some instances, that's what's expected. There's no, like teachers, educators, the job, everybody looks at it like an 8 to 3 job or every day or whatever the hours are. They don't see how much you take home at the end of the day. They don't see teachers. I had a teacher just a couple of months ago, when I had her to read the book before the book was put out. I said, will you read this book, and just give me some feedback on it. And she said she broke down and cried when she read that book, because she was like, every weekend I spend in this house doing lesson plans and preparing for my kids at school. And she said, as I read that book and reflected on it, making me emotional just talking about it now. She said, as I read that book and reflected on it, I realized that how much I don't give to my own family. I give everything to that job. She was like, we love our kids at school, but she was like, the time that I'm taking away from my husband, from my own grandkids. She said, after I read that book, she sent me some pictures. She said, we went to the beach this weekend. She said, when I told my grandkids that I was going to take them to the beach, they were like, Grandma, you say that all the time. We're not, like, they didn't believe that, because I make these promises all the time, but I'm so tied down on the weekends trying to get my lesson plans done and trying to do all this other stuff for school. And I realized that my life with my family is passing me by. Like my grandkids are growing up and they're here and I'm missing out on all of that. So she was like, we went to the beach this weekend. I just put it down and she was like, it felt so just like I was at such peace with being able to do that. Like I said before, people need permission, I think, to take care of themselves. It's so that's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why.
And I hear the passion in your voice. But if we don't get this right with teachers, with social workers, with counselors, with folks who are in the caring profession, what is going to happen? Talk to my listeners and who are out there who may not be in this profession, but let us know what's going to be the outcome if we don't take care of the most vulnerable people. It's not just the children that are the most vulnerable, because we say the children are the most vulnerable, but what will happen if we don't take care of the people who are responsible for the children?
Right. Like if we're not taking care of the teachers and like you said, the helping professionals, the social workers, the counselors that take care of the kids, if those people are not taking care of themselves and we're not taking care of them, like you said, where does that leave us? It's almost like the same thing when you're looking at the healthcare industry, with all this COVID stuff. When the healthcare people are not there to take care of the sick, what happens? It's the same concept.
So there's a principal. There's a principal listening right now, and he or she is saying, "I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, and I don't have the time." And the word time always gets to me when I'm talking to people about self-care. They always say, "I don't have the time," and I say, "Let me just tell you this: we all have the time. We just waste a whole bunch of time." So there's a principal who's trying to find some strategies, Gwen, and don't have the strategies. Help him or her, or there's a superintendent, state superintendent, county superintendent, city superintendent who wants to do this as well. Help them with some strategies to then help support the most vulnerable who are the provider.
Right. And I'll use this example, another example. I had another administrator who I asked also, because I wrote this book, like I said, I was living it, but I wanted to think, am I just crazy? I mean, like, is this really going to be helpful for people? So I asked, an administrator, a school administrator that I knew, I used to feed into her school, my kids. And I said, would you read this book and give me some feedback? She said, let me know when this book comes out because I am going to buy it for every last one of my staff members. And she did. And she said, she wrote me a very nice message. She said, that book, the PD that we had last year was the best professional development that we had all year long. She was like, it is evident that you have the insider perspective on what people need and how to take care of them. And I got an email from her early one, that the email that she wrote that in, she was like a week or so after she read it. She said, I am sitting at my desk right now doing a strategy out of your book. And so she was like, I am going to give this to every single person in my building. And then she wrote me another email over the holidays. She said, I just drafted an email for my entire staff coming back from the holidays because we're going to hit the ground running like we always do in January. But I want them to pull out that book and revisit it so that they can prepare and make sure that they're implementing those strategies as we come back into the building. So give people tools that they can use. I just talked to someone, I'm actually going there Friday. Someone reached out to me from a community action agency and they said, Dr. Gwen, can you give me some strategies for my staff? What kinds of things? Because I'm planning this event at the end of the year. At the end of the year. Yeah, I'm planning this event at the end of the year. And I want to know. And I said, so I told her some things. And then I said, but let me ask you this. It's February, because I was talking to her. I said, it's February. What are you going to do for your staff to sustain them from now until May? Because when they go home in May, a lot of their stressor is going to be gone because they're no longer at work. They got 2 months off. They're going to de-stress during that 2 months. But guess what? They're going to come back to the same stressful situation if you don't give them tools that they can use to help manage their stress on a daily basis. And she said, send me a proposal. You come and talk to me. I applauded that she recognized that her staff needed help and she wasn't exactly sure what to do. So she said, come in and help us. And I'm
Wow.
excited about that.
So I heard you say you want to be more accessible to the community and to the students that you work with. You know, why did you want to be more accessible when some of us are so burned out? I'm going to talk about that burned out piece, but why did you want to become more accessible to the students that you were working with? Were they not getting what they needed during the school day? Did you just want to provide more services with them? And then how did you protect your peace in the accessibility that you've then given to the parents and the children?
Wanting to provide more services. I mean, in school, the role is different as a counselor in a school versus a counselor in a mental health setting or in private practice. In school, you're not really providing therapy. It's more guidance and support is what you're providing. So the students that really need more than that, that's not what the school provides. You have to go outside of the school to get that. So, a school counselor is not spending an hour a week with a student or, they're very limited. And in most cases in schools, you may have one counselor that's responsible for, 1,000 students.
I still think that is insane.
It is insane.
Person to be responsible for that many people. And so you see why that there's this inadequate access to care for those children.
Right. So I wanted to be the person that really could give them, what they need. And I found ways to do that still in the class when you have administrators that, work with you and it's really collaborative and they allow you to step outside the box. But still, I wanted to do more and to give more.
And so then how did you then pivot from the accessibility to then protecting your peace? Because now you've moved into sort of the self-care profession to some degree as you're starting to write about that. I know one of the things that my passion and love is self-care. I tell people, repeat after me, self-care is not selfish. Dr. Gwen, just last week, for the last 3 weeks, I spent every week for 3 weeks in a row with some of the most amazing superheroes in Maryland. They're called social workers. And my whole talk was called Running on Empty, self-care for those who care for others. I know as a healthcare provider, worker, mental health provider, social worker, whatever title that you have, because you talk about accessibility, I know with that accessibility that there's a level of burnout. And so I know now what you're doing is you're writing about creating a culture of self-care in the workplace. Talk to my folks who are serving others. Talk to them about what you did and then share some strategies.
So, I'll talk about how my journey with self-care started. And like you say, for me, it started probably the last, 5-6 years or more. So what happened was, givers, one of my favorite saying is we have to have limits because takers do not, and so we have to have limits. And so what I found was I was working full time as a school counselor. I was working at the university at night. And then, so I was leaving home literally 6:30 in the morning, driving 40 minutes to my day job and working all day, leaving there, driving an hour to the university. Some nights I taught one class, some nights two. So the nights I taught two classes, I would leave the college at 10:45 at night, get home. I had an hour drive home. So I was literally leaving at 6:30 in the morning, getting home at midnight. That just was not sustainable. And even though I was very passionate about it, was loving, every aspect of what I was doing, at the time, I was also the caregiver. My husband and I were the caregivers for his 92-year-old grandmother. So it was a lot. I think we lost her maybe that first semester that I taught. Didn't take any time off, was surviving, but clearly not thriving. I was just giving so much of myself till I, at a point I was like, Gwen, you have to step back, And so when I'm writing these books, I'm talking about, I'm in my life. I'm, sharing the experiences that I had. And not only that, being in that role as a counselor at the school, you're not only there for the students, you're there for the staff as well. So, I'm living that experience. I have the insider perspective on, just trying to manage it all. And I think as women, we're talking about Women History Month here. I think, and not that men don't experience this as well, but I think women with being, oftentimes the caregivers and the nurturers and the, taking care of the home and the job and everything. We do it all. And, we have to take a step back. So I started, I think one of the things with self-care is this whole misconception that it has to be taking a vacation. It has to be getting a massage every week. It has to be, getting manicures and pedicures. And self-care really is not about, people often think it has to do with time and money. And it can, that's why people feel I don't have the luxury of self-care, because their perception of self-care is that it costs time and it costs money and takes time. When really self-care is really about those things that you do every day with fidelity and with intention to take care of yourself. And in the workplace, that could look like, especially for counselors and social workers, that could mean making sure that on your schedule every day, you have 30 minutes blocked off or an hour, whatever, to have a healthy lunch and to sit and just breathe for a minute. Because oftentimes we hit the ground running and don't stop. It's the end of the day and it's like, man, I hadn't even had lunch today, because we're constantly taking care of other people. It might be getting up a few minutes early in the morning and meditating, just getting your mind right before you step into, the building when you already know everybody's coming for you. It could be taking a few minutes at the end of the night and just expressing gratitude for, the things that you did that day. Because sometimes we think, we had a really bad day. But what I try to tell the kids oftentimes is we don't have a bad day. We may have bad moments or spots within our day. But if you actually take the time at the end of the night or just, sometime during the day to express gratitude, it's hard to stay in that negative space, when you're giving thanks for things and expressing gratitude. So
why do you feel there's a misperception of what self-care is? Because I agree with you when people are saying, well, you need to have money, you need to have resources. What does that perception come from?
I think it comes from the media in some instances, because, it's everybody's living their best life. You see them when they're on vacation, and that's the caption, I'm taking time for self-care because I'm, in the Bahamas or, where, I'm in Florida kind of thing, or, so that's the images that we see. So I think that kind of shapes people's mindset around access and time and money.
So talk to me about the stigma when it comes to women taking time. There is this huge stigma, this dark cloud that hovers over women when it comes to, I'm about to take some time for myself. Where does that myth come from? And then how have you shattered that and convinced other women and also men, but I know you work with women a lot. How have you helped them to sort of shatter that, as I think about John Kabat-Zinn, he has a quote that says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. How are you helping women to shatter that myth?
One of the things is, and you touched on this earlier when you said self-care is not selfish. Women, I think a lot of times it's you put everyone before yourself, the husband, the kids, the job. And at the end of the day, you're depleted and you wake up the next morning and you do it. And some of it is just because that's our nature. But I think the stigma comes in, and I'll talk a little bit about one of the workshops I do, and it's around just, a self-care Saturday. We did this, and that was the very first one I did, was very eye-opening because it was for counselors and teachers, educators more or less. So I had a lot of teachers' aides and stuff that came to. And so I talked about what self-care was in the different domains, because most people think about just physical self-care. When they think about self-care, they think about exercise, eating right, getting enough sleep, and all those things are important. But then there's also other aspects of self-care, like the emotional domain, the psychological domain, the spiritual domain, and then, like we talked about, the professional domain. And so it was really eye-opening for a lot of women who said, I have never really even thought about that I need to take time for me. Like, this is so, like, it was a foreign concept for many. It was almost like they needed permission to take care of themselves. And for someone to say it's okay to have a day where you're doing something just for you. You're cooking a meal that only you like, and that, like, I'm not cooking for the kids or cooking for my husband. Some women, I really like so-and-so, but I never cook it because my family doesn't eat it or they don't like it. Or, you're just having a day, like a lot of educators too, they wait till the summertime to take a break. That's what vacation days are for. Take a day when the husbands aren't at home and the kids are at school, and you're just going to do nothing or do whatever it is that you like. So I think it's just giving people permission and letting them know that it's okay and it's the expectation.
So women, this is your month. You heard Dr. Gwen gave you a prescription. Some husband, some partner, some boss right now is about to be so mad at Dr. Gwen because she is telling the women in these organizations, these agencies, and the men, we're not going to forget about the men. Dr. Gwen is telling you, go out and take care of yourselves. You cannot give what you don't have. So this is right on point. Now, you travel, you're speaking, you're lecturing. What's the one tool that you carry with you in your toolbox, no matter where you go, when you're traveling? What's that one self-care tool or two, something that's tangible that you like? I'll give you an example. When I travel and I don't have it with me in the studio, I travel with this, it's a spray bottle of lavender. And I spray, first of all, I clean the room. Us as Black folk, I'm praying, I'm getting all them spirits up out of there. Not saying that my white brothers and sisters don't do, but we throw God and everything, right? I'm getting all, I don't know who been in this bed. I'm not just the Lysol, we getting the spirits up out that place. And before I put my head on that pillow, I spray some lavender on that pillow. If you don't know, lavender is very soothing. Now, I can't put it on my skin, it sort of breaks me out, but it's very soothing. What's that one tool, tangible thing, Dr. Gwen, that you carry with you no matter where you're going, that helps you get centered on your self-care?
I carry, two things come to mind. I'm an avid reader, so I always carry my Kindle, but I'm not reading anything with any kind of substance. I say I'm a romance novel junkie. So at night, it's a great way to just relax. But also, I have my journal with me. Journaling has been a game changer for me. I mean, like I said, I talked about expressions of gratitude and just, I think, and you talked about this too, having just at the conference where you have a gazillion ideas and all those kinds of things. I'm one of those people too. My mind's always racing. I have, 50 million ideas in this head of mine. But what I find is when I write in my journal at night, and, it's just, like I said, it starts out with expressions of gratitude. I write what I did with fidelity that day to take care of myself. I write some affirmations, and then I end with a goal that I have for the next day.
I'm so glad you talked about journaling, because I'm always doing my research. It's like you're a researcher. There's so much research around the concept of journaling, but also we don't learn by doing, we learn by reflecting. So when you take time to reflect, and people like us who are constantly giving, and I like how you said, takers don't have limit. They just gonna keep taking. But givers, we sort of need to pull back. And journaling, even if you don't journal, if you want to pull out your phone, because the phone are our lovers, right? We got a better relationship with our phone than we do with our lovers, our partners and husband. So since you have that relationship, I would suggest that you download a recording piece, a recording app, and you record your thoughts. But it's something about moving that hand and saying it. So there is a body of research out there for those that don't believe that supports the importance of journaling, and then also just having that tool, I think, is so important for us to share. When you talked about your Kindle, I think it was Toni Morrison, Nikki Giovanni, one of them, who said they were so excited when the Kindles and all these books came out, because they said when they traveled all these books, 5, 6, 7 books. And I when I heard about that, I didn't feel bad, because I got so many unfinished books that I read that I'm reading, and people don't understand it, but I'm going to get to them. But like you said, I'm reading something that's not don't have a whole bunch of substance late at night. That's not going, get my body and my energy fired up. But you want to have a way that you end, like however you start your day, you want to end your day. And I always say this, and I want you to tell me about your morning ritual. When you win the morning, you win the day. I say that all the time. You win the morning, you win the day. So all of my self-care providers that are out there, all of my givers, all of my change agents, winning the morning is important, because it dictates, it shows you how you're going to move throughout the day. And these are the 5 things that I do, Gwen. First, I'm saying something I'm grateful for. So I say it out loud. I pray or I meditate. I spend that time. I do a walking meditation. So I'm making my bed. I move versus working out, because when you hear workout, people are like, oh, I got to go to the gym. And then I eat a healthy whole meal. That's the thing that I do. But then my extra bonus is I play some inspirational music, some music that's going to lift my spirit. And then the new one I add because I attempt to use, Gwen, all of the senses. And so I either put on some aromatherapy, or I spray something in the air to then get that final senses in there. What is your morning routine like to get you? Because when you walk into the door, as you said, it's on and popping. You're being called in many different directions. So walk me through some of your morning routines that you use, and that you share with some of the people that come to your workshop, and many of the social workers and educators that you work with.
I like that you said that, because I think the morning it definitely is a time, for me, it's a time of peace. I am a morning person. I am up early in the morning. I don't need an alarm clock most of the time.
Because purpose is your alarm clock. I tell people purpose is the alarm clock. Ain't nothing like purpose.
I like that. So I'm up when the rest of the world is asleep. I love the sound of just quiet. So just getting up in the morning, like you said, the first thing I do is go in, and the first thing I do when I get up every morning is drink a glass of water. That's my first thing. I'm going to start with a glass of water. And then I just sit, like you said, and meditate for a minute, do some stretches first thing in the morning, kind of get moving. Oftentimes I'm on my bike. I have a bike that I jump on in the morning, and that's a quick time to just, where I have my phone, like you said, I'm riding my bike, stationary bike, but I can sit there and respond to a couple of messages.
Get that heart rate up. Yep.
Yeah. And then, most of the time, like you said, do some affirmations to start out my day. It's just getting it's the mindset. I think, that's how you sum it up. Just getting in the right mindset for the day.
Well, I know you've taken some of those principles and you've written a book, A to Z, the self-care guides for educators. Make yourself a priority. Talk to my listeners about that book. It's a beautiful book. I actually brought it for one of our staff members who was at the conference. What was the inspiration of the book, and what should people expect from reading the book? And then share with us the journal and the piece that you've written for teenagers as well.
The inspiration for the A to Z self-care guide came out of really the pandemic. When we made that transition, it was a huge paradigm shift for a lot of people going home. And I was one of those people. So trying to manage it all, and it all came really quickly. So it was overwhelming, for parents, for teachers, for educators. It was overwhelming for everyone. So I would, just that book came out of response from my colleagues, and not only that, what I was experiencing. So I wanted to give people tools that they can use and ideas to help them manage the stress and the overwhelm. So that's where the A to Z self-care guide came from. And the very first thing, A, is ask for help. For many people, that's a hard thing to do. But I wanted people to know that it was a healthy, natural response to, problematic situations. I
Why are
mean,
people afraid to ask for help? Why, I was talking to one of my family members and I talk about this village that we created a village and my daughter, we created a village. My daughter's away at school. And I'm like, you have a village of people that went to school with me, who loved you before you even came on this planet, who watched you grow up, and they are basically in spaces to support you. And she says, Baba, which calls me Baba in Swahili, she says, Baba, I don't like to ask people for help.
And I think in some instances, it's a cultural thing, in some instances, but also for women, we think that people see it often as a sign of weakness. Like you think that you're supposed to be able to handle it all. And you're not. That's why you have all these different, roles in the school. You have the counselor, the nurse, the administrator, the social worker. All those people, have roles. Nobody can do it all. We are bigger, better, stronger together.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I'm thinking about our sister, Naomi Osaka, who these hecklers, these folks who don't understand mental health and the stress to stay on top, when she dealt with that a year ago, and now she's back at it again, struggling around, what is this stigma about when it comes to, even when we put ourselves out there, we're saying that I'm not okay. Now this new hashtag, it's okay to say I'm not okay. But then when we still say it publicly, then people scrutinize us. Where is that coming from?
Yeah, like I said, I think people that's a loaded question.
I mean, you think about this. Some heckler said you suck, and I heard a male voice. It wasn't a female who is connected to her based on gender and based on experiences, but you're out here doing what you do, what you love, and you're also entertaining people. And a year prior to that, she had this breakdown. She's not the only one. Other athletes, other entertainers. And the reason why I bring it up, because not only are we just honoring women, and she's a very strong young woman who has very strong support, but you said it, the first one is ask for help. And not saying that she has not, she's publicly asked for help. But even in the face of that, when this is a public figure, and then you're asking me as a school counselor, school teacher, you want me to ask for help? This public figure who clearly put it out there, and this is what happened. What do you have to say for those people who are struggling in silence in these classrooms, in these closets, in these book rooms, in these bathrooms, and they have these masks, but when you pull the mask down, you can see that they're not taking care of themselves?
And I think, that's definitely, we don't want people suffering in silence. You don't have to. One of my things I say often is that there are people out there who want to help you, who will help you if you just ask. And if you ask one person and they don't help you, keep asking until you get the help that you need. But, going back to, what you said about just people not being able, and I've been in that situation where even as colleagues, like you said, in school, there's always a few people who are doing it all to some extent, because they're people pleasers and they don't know how to say no, and they take on, and oftentimes I talk about this a lot, they're voluntold to do a lot of different things. But I think one of the important things when you were talking about is also when people can't ask for help for whatever reason, I think it's important for the people around them to recognize and offer to help and offer that support when they can't ask. Because sometimes it's a pride thing. I'm too proud to ask for help. And sometimes the people who are the strongest, they think that, people, especially counselors, we may say, everybody's coming to us for help. What does it look like when I got to go for help? It looks like you're taking care of yourself. It looks like you are adhering to the ethical codes that you are bound by. That's
Is that
what
why
it looks like.
is that why you decide to spend your time writing, researching, and supporting educators and social workers for that very reason?
Yes, that is. So, we too need help, and we have to support each other in that. Oftentimes, most counselors have a counselor, or I won't say most counselors have a counselor. A lot of counselors have a counselor as well. And we need to take away that stigma about, asking for help being a sign of weakness, because it's not. It's a healthy, I want to say that again, a healthy, natural response to problematic situations.
And I love it. I love talking to my therapist. She is amazing. She's an older woman of color. And we talked about finding people who are sort of in that space that sort of culturally you're connected to, and when you find some type of connections. It's a great opportunity for me to, for her to pour into me, because I'm constantly pouring into others. And so having someone I can just sort of just unpack all of my, I don't want to say dumping, but unpack all of the stuff that's in my head. Because as a creator, I'm thinking of that. As a person who's pouring into other people, as a person who has to be there for his family, as also has to be there for his dog, who is also I'm dealing with an animal who's also having some healthcare issues. So I understand that. Dr. Gwen, how can my listeners get in contact with you if they want to work with you? And if they want to get their book for themselves and also for their teens, how can they get a copy of the book or books rather?
Yes, the books are available on Amazon. If you'll just type in Gwendolyn A. Martin, all of them will come up. I know we didn't get a chance to talk much about the teen book, but the same concept, a lot of teens are struggling right now, or children in general. We hear about the suicide rate, that's constantly going up. COVID has compounded all of that, with kids being in the house and not getting out and not having strategies to take care of themselves. Excuse me. And the other thing is just not being able to ask for help. So teaching them how to do that, how to ask for help and to find support in their community. So the books are available on Amazon. They're also available. You can buy them directly on my website at drgwenscounselorscafe.com/shop. They're also available there. And if you want to get in contact with me, the same thing, Dr. Gwen's Counselors Cafe, my email address, phone number, all of that is available on the website.
So I know you got a lot of stuff going on. What is in store for this coming year? Any new projects, any new workshops, any new seminars? Is there somewhere that people can find you?
Yes, this year I really would like to get more into schools, to talk to teens about, just managing self-care, and educators too. And I'm starting to do more of that. I've carved some time out of the week from private practice to just go in and talk to educators and helping professionals, and get into schools to talk about the importance of self-care, and to give people tips, tools, and strategies of ways to do that, to take care of themselves.
Well, I've took many and plenty notes to share with myself, to come back and reflect. That's why I love bringing people on. I always tell people this show is selfish. It's really about you all pouring into me. It's just other people are just eavesdropping and listening to what we're talking about. But I bring some of the dopest people into this space who are rock stars, and just some people just I don't know why they don't know you all. So I'm glad I create this space.
And there's one other thing I wanted to add. I just released just yesterday, actually earlier this week, a self-care course that I wrote, because oftentimes teachers and mental health professionals, we all have to, people think you get a degree. It's not like business. You get the degree and then you have it and you don't have to go back. Well, for counselors and teachers, we have to recertify depending on what, system you're in, every 3 to 5 years. And for mental health professionals, it's every other year you're recertifying. So you have to stay. So I wrote a self-care course, and it's specifically, and I got it accredited through the University of San Diego, so that you can level up personally and professionally. You can actually take a course, get credit, and use it for recertification, but you are learning strategies to take care of yourself. That was something because oftentimes too, as a counselor in the school, I was having to take training that, really was about teachers It had nothing to do with my role, but you end up taking stuff because you have to and you need to recertify. So I was like, let me create something that's going to be beneficial. So even if you don't need credit, you could just take the course and get you some strategies, tips, tools, and then it's a separate, price point if you do need the credit, and that comes directly from University of San Diego. So I am finding ways. I am gonna get you to take some care of yourself one way or another.
So you have the books, you have the in-person seminars, you have the accredited course that you can take. You said University of San Diego, is that the school?
Yes.
So there's no way around this. And so I appreciate you. I love the first part, but the second part is even much more fun. It's called the Super Bomb questions. The difference between this and the first part is that I'm going to ask you a question and I need you to answer them as quickly as possible. No commentary at all. You ready, Dr. G?
All right, let's get ready. I'm ready. All right, bring them.
What's your favorite word?
Favorite word is favorite word is wow. I don't know. Wow.
What's your favorite quote, Bible verse, or a lyric to a song?
One of them I just shared. Givers must have limits because takers do not.
What's your superpower?
My superpower is that I'm a helper.
What's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal, I'd say the eagle.
What moves you to tears of joy?
Tears of joy is just helping others and seeing them thrive. Is
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
Grief, death, saying goodbye.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Just spend with family and friends, just to stay connected in that way. I mean, people are all over the country, so yeah, spending time, FaceTime, not like FaceTime on the computer, but actual FaceTime where I can, reach out and touch and hug and, yeah.
What advice are you glad that you ignored?
I'm glad that I ignored the advice of, I think at every point, somebody has said you weren't good enough. And sometimes that may just be your subconscious. So not ignoring that voice that you're not good enough, or people don't want to hear what you have to say. And, I have a lot to say and some people do want to hear it.
What do you know for sure?
I know for sure that I am a child of God, and that I am highly favored, and that he's always working for my good.
Now, my show is called Sound Bombing. So what sound or noise do you love?
I love, the sound. I talk about quiet all the time, and I can be out in my garden all day listening to the birds, and just being in nature in general. I call it my happy place.
Well, Dr. Gwendolyn Martin, aka Dr. Gwen, I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. Listeners, go out, pick up her books, check out her talks, invite her into your space, either in real time or virtual. Do yourself a favor, take care of yourself. Listen to this recording over and over again, and pull your pen out or your phone and write those notes down, because she dropped some jewels today. So Dr. G, Dr. Gwen, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. LaMarr. And we don't mind pouring into you at all, because you give so much to others.
Thank you. Thank you. And I got to thank my amazing engineer, Alexander Blanc, my super duper producer, Carrie Mattia. And listen, I can't do this without all of you. Listen to me, subscribe, share with us. We're on every platform. We want you to leave a comment. We want to hear what you have to say. If there's a guest that you want me to invite on the show who has an amazing story, invite them. Let me know. Carrie, reach out to them. But bigger than that, go out and do something for someone other than yourself today. But thank you for listening to Sound Bombing. Happy Social Workers Month, and happy Women History Month. Peace.